What is going on, my broskies? My name is Toadski and I'm back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys a discussion on how to beat Doflamingo, who is the brand new raid boss that was announced on the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise that will be coming on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I believe. So it's going to be crazy time of the year to have Doflamingo to come on global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise. I'm very excited to bring you guys this video because this is by far one of the most anticipated raid bosses in the history of global One Piece Treasure Cruise, and by far Doflamingo is one of the best units in the game. So you definitely want to be trying to farm him and get his special max because he is definitely one of the better units in the game. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into the video. So as we like to do, guys, let's go ahead and break down the actual unit himself. So here is Donquixote Doflamingo, Warlord of the Sea. Now this is the version of Doflamingo that is at his final evolution. When you do drop him, he will be a 4-star version. He evolves at level 70 and he will evolve into this 5-star form. Now he is a Dex slasher type unit. Now level 1, his stats are pretty insane for a level 1 unit. 5-star unit, 932 health, 721 attack, and 118 recovery. When you do max him out at level 99, he gets 2,311 health, 1,500 attack, and 255 recovery. Now that is some insane statistics. That is absolutely crazy. For a unit to have 1,500 attack, like, that's just phenomenal. 2,300 health is alright, however his captain effect does compensate for that, and his recovery 255 for a slasher is actually, like, it's pretty significant actually. Now let's go on to his captain effect here, which basically just doubles the attack of slashers and also doubles their HP as well. So he's like a Jozu for slasher type units. It's really nice. And his special, which is what everyone is going on about, which starts at 28 turns and maxes at 14 turns. You can freely switch your orbs twice and then amplify the effects of orbs for 2 times for a single turn. Now this is a lot better than units than like Kaku or Kobe, because those units only amplify orbs by 1.5 times for a single turn or for multiple turns. Doflamingo will double the effectiveness of that orb. So instead of getting, just the 1.5 times, you're getting 2 times, plus you've got the actual orb itself, which gives that unit 2 times more attack damage. So you can just see how everything will stack up, and Doflamingo special just allows your team to output so much more damage, and it's just a very explosive special that is definitely one that you definitely want to max out, as it will be not required, but it will just help out significantly in the future of One Piece Treasure Cruise. Now, actually moving on to the stages now. The first stage in particular doesn't have anything to really talk about, really. Like, there's just some basic pirates. Now, here on stage 2, though, you have the Red Giant and some other fodder units. Now, the fodder units are pretty easy to beat, nothing really too special about them. But the Giant in particular is something that is worth mentioning, because you actually can get some extra turns of stall on him. Now, the Giant himself has 150,000 health, and he attacks for 7,000 if he does get that chance to attack. Now, when his HP falls below 20% or less, he actually activates his special instead of attacking. Now, his special will just buff his attack. That's all it does, and this actually gives you a couple more turns of stall, which is definitely essential when it comes to raid bosses in particular, because if you guys do know, you only get 5 stages in a raid boss, so it's actually not a lot of time to stall for your specials. So by getting each amount of stall as you can, like the maximum amount of turns of stall that you can, is just great. And this is one of the stages where you want to try and get that Giant under 20% health without killing him. That is the really hard thing to do in this stage, but if you do get it right, you get that couple of extra turns of stall, and it just helps out significantly throughout this dungeon. So moving on from stage 2, we have stage 3 now, and this is the stage where they introduce either the evolution or the booster type units. Now, as you can see, they've got a lobster and a turtle on stage 3. Now, there are also some random pirates as well. There's 4 of those guys, so those guys are actually pretty easy to beat. There's nothing too much there. However, these lobsters and turtles, they both have 8 HP. Means that you can get a maximum of 2 hits on them before they'll die, So you just got to make sure that if you are trying to stall, make sure not to take too much health because they deal a decent amount of damage. You know, the lobster's dealing about 2,000 health and the turtle is doing about 1,300. So you got to make sure that you know, that you don't really take too much damage, but you also try and get as much stall as you can. So definitely try and stall accordingly to your health and whichever team you're using, and as well as like how many like what's the cooldown on each of the units in the specific stage. Now, the second last stage before you reach Doflamingo is obviously the stage where they have the seahorse and some other units, which is, you know, pretty annoying. You know, they always have this sort of stage right before you reach the actual raid boss. Now, in this room here, you'll see that the seahorse, he has 6 health, which is about standard for all of the seahorses in all of the raid bosses, and then we have the 5 random pirates as well. So now, these pirates here, they have 5 health, and they attack for about 6,000 damage, so you got to make sure you don't get hit by them. However, if you leave one of them alive, it will either chain the unit that it's weak to, or it will do the attack damage of 6,000. Now, for example, if you leave the purple one, the int unit, alive, he will chain any units on your team that are psi units for 2 turns, and then that unit that chained will go to a 2-turn cooldown. This ultimately gives you a couple more turns of stall, and it's something that you really want to take into account. So the best thing to do on this stage, because nearly every team that you bring to Doflamingo's raid boss will have a golden pound Usopp, you want to try kill the seahorse, kill all of the other units, and leave the int one alive so that you get your golden pound chained, and then you can just take out the unit, wait for the chains to go off, and then you'll move on to the next stage, getting that couple of extra turns of stall, which is always good to get in the raid boss dungeons. So once you reach the boss stage of stage 5, you'll see here that Doflamingo is not alone. He has a clone of himself. Now, the top Doflamingo attacks for 6,000 damage, and he has 2.4 million health, and the bottom Doflamingo will attack for 12,000 damage, and he also has 2.4 million health. So combined, they have 4.8 million health, which is crazy. That is so difficult to take down, and you know, they do have a very strong attack power as well. So this is not all. There is actually a lot of things that have to be taken into account with this raid boss. So now let's move on to the actual turns and what will happen when you reach Doflamingo. So upon entering Doflamingo, the preemptive attack will give himself a debuff protector for 4 turns, and also you will lose 50% of your overall health, which is pretty annoying. You know, as just upon entering, you're going to be losing half your health, which is never a good thing. And then the turn after that, the top Doflamingo will actually buff his defense. Now, that defense shield is actually pretty strong, so you're going to be doing a lot less damage there. And then the turn after that is where you'll be taking the first round of damage. Now, on turn 2, that is basically where you want to be using your damage reducers like Jozu, Perona, or Alvida. Those are definitely some strong units to use at that turn there. And then the turn after that is where the debuff protector will begin to wear off. So that is the turn where you want to be using Golden Pound Usopp, of course, so that you can get extra turns to take him down without taking too much damage. Now, if you do not use Golden Pound Usopp, you can see that there's a lot of consecutive turns where a lot of bad things will happen. And as you see at turn 5 here, he will chain the middle 2 units. Now, you do not want that to happen. So, you definitely want to take out the top Doflamingo first, because he's the most annoying one. Because the one on the bottom, he actually does not do anything. He just attacks you and does the most damage that he possibly can. So, you can deal with him a little bit more easier than all of the chains and all of the buffs that will be being applied from the top Doflamingo. So as I said, definitely take down the top Doflamingo first before choosing to go to the bottom Doflamingo. And as you can see, if you keep on going down the list, you can see by the time you reach 9+ turns, the top Doflamingo will eventually keep recovering, which means that it doesn't really matter what you do, you pretty much are going to be stuffed, and you pretty much cannot beat the dungeon at that stage. So as I said, you want to be taking down the top Doflamingo first, and then the second one after that. Now, if you do reach under 20% on the Doflamingo, you'll see here that the bottom Doflamingo will deal 99,999 damage, which will basically be a one-hit KO, and you do not want that to happen. So it's pretty difficult, but by this stage you're using Golden Pound Usopp, and if you do have a strong enough team, you should be pretty much good to go and take down Doflamingo at that stage there. So now let's move on to a specific team or teams that we're going to be using to defeat Doflamingo. Now, here is a most ideal Monster Chopper team. Now, with this team, you've got Monster Choppers, of course, you've got Arlong, Jozu, Golden Pound, and Mihawk. Now, you got to make sure the Golden Pound and Mihawk are at maximum special, otherwise this will be a little bit difficult to complete. Now, this crew cost is 152, so it's actually not even that bad, and instead of Jozu, if you really wanted to, you could go ahead and use Perona or Alvida, but there are specific things you have to take into account if you do choose to use these units over Jozu. Now, with Perona, you got to make sure that you have her special level at least 17 or lower, otherwise it's pretty much impossible to beat Doflamingo. Now, upon entering stage 5, which is the last stage, the boss stage, your HP must be above 3,602 because your health gets cut in half, and after you use Perona's special and you try and take that first hit, you will die if your HP is actually below this upon entering the last stage. And with Alvida, it doesn't really matter because she starts at 15 and you'll pretty much have that by then. But upon entering the last stage, you want to make sure that your HP is above 7,202. Now, as you can see, that's a lot more difficult. If you have Perona or Jozu, it makes it a whole lot more easier. It becomes almost impossible if you have Alvida, but it still can be done, but it's a little bit more harder. But yeah, those are just some other units that you could use instead of Jozu, because for the most part, that team is actually free to play, because all the units you don't even need gems for. But you just got to make sure that you have your Golden Pound and your Mihawk max, or you got to have your Perona and Alvida at a pretty low special level. So that is the first team that I'm going to recommend. And now let's move on to some more generic teams that some people who have a lot of gems to spend and a lot of units could use instead of this team. So this next team here is the Gear 3rd team, of course, plus you're using a couple of shields as well. Now, with this team, you get 12.25 times attack after 3 consecutive perfects. Obviously, with Gear 3, that's really, really strong, with a crew cost of only 92, so this is actually a pretty solid team if you do not have a very high pirate level. And also, with this team, you're going to be using Perona and Jozu. So obviously, with Jozu, it doesn't matter because I'm pretty sure his special starts at 15 turns, which is fine. But with Perona, you got to make sure that she is at least like 17 or lower, otherwise it becomes very, very difficult at that stage. And obviously, you've got max Golden Pound, of course, like that's standard. You must have Golden Pound, like either max or very, very close to max, otherwise it becomes very, very difficult to actually complete the dungeon. So anyways, that is that team there. Very, very solid team. You just got to make sure that you can hit your perfects to activate Gear 3rd special. Moving on to another team, we have Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard is actually pretty cool because we are getting Blackbeard again the day before Doflamingo actually comes out. Now, with this team here, you're obviously using double Blackbeard, which gives you 6.25 times attack and 5.06 times HP to all of your strength units, and then you take double damage as well. So, very, very strong team for a lot of strength units here. Now, regarding specials, you got to make sure that your Blackbeards, even your friend Blackbeard, has a really decently low special, like 25 or lower would be the most optimal, like close to max would be the best situation. With your Marco as well, that has to be like below 25. It has to be like the same as your Blackbeard, like it has to be pretty much even with Blackbeard. Like if you're around 23 turns, it's great, like just close to max as possible, but if it's anything above 25, it gets very, very difficult. And then obviously max Golden Pound, a reasonably low Alvida because she's your only damage reducer that you have on your team, and obviously because you're taking double damage, it makes it like very, very difficult to actually stall and then take the damage from Doflamingo. So you got to make sure your Alvida is actually pretty decently low special level, and obviously Monster Chopper's just there because you get a lot of health and a lot of attack by using Blackbeard as your captain with Monster Chopper on your team. Now, the reason why Marco is there is because after you take that hit from Doflamingo, you're going to try and heal back up with Marco, and then you're going to be using Blackbeard special the next time you get hit by Doflamingo to do massive damage to Doflamingo because you got both Blackbeard special. So you can just imagine the actual damage output that you can get with this team. Although it's not the fastest team to beat Doflamingo with, it's still a very reliable team. It works if you make sure that you have your Marco and your Blackbeard specials as low as possible. And overall cost is 152, which isn't even that bad, really. It's not that bad at all. So definitely Blackbeard works against Doflamingo reasonably well. And the last team that we will be discussing is the power to destroy the world, Whitebeard. Now, Whitebeard is pretty easy to use in this dungeon. Just you gotta make sure that you have your Whitebeard skill levels maxed, and then you gotta have a max golden pound as well. And this team is just so good. Like, it's just amazing. So obviously you need to have Jozu on this team. If you have Perona, you cannot use her, or even Alvida, you cannot use them, because with Whitebeard in particular, you have low health to begin with. So if you're trying to reduce the damage that you take by using Perona or Alvida, for the most part, you're going to die. So by having Jozu to completely negate the damage is definitely required. And then I put a random strength unit because it really doesn't matter what you could use. Like, you could use Arlong for the massive statistic, or you could use Kid because he gives himself a strength orb, or you could use Blamenko for some more orb manipulation if you get some really bad orbs against Doflamingo. Like, there's a couple of units that you could use. I would definitely use Monster Chopper though, because like he has that really nice special that you could use if you have him low enough, or just the fact that he's the most powerful strength unit in the game that we have right now. So why not put Monster Chopper in there? But yeah, it really doesn't matter which unit that you use. Like, as I said, Arlong, Blamenko, Kid, either one of those three would be very nice to put in this specific Whitebeard team. So that is going to conclude yet another how to beat video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you guys have, make sure to smack the like button down below. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the content that I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, then make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But other than that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.